Breaking news. We are interrupting regular programming for a developing story that is arguably unprecedented in the history of modern international relations. Moments ago, high-level intelligence sources confirmed to this network what began only hours ago as a series of frantic, confused signals from a diplomatic convoy in transit. A sitting head of state, a major world leader recognized by the United Nations, is currently being held against their will by security forces of a rival superpower. This is not a drill. This is not a glitch in communication, and the implications of this event are instantaneous and terrifying. The unspoken agreement that has held the geopolitical order together since the end of the Cold War has just been shattered. We are receiving reports that the leader, AS, Secure Communications, went dark approximately 4 hours ago, while their aircraft was diverted to a restricted military airfield under the guise of a technical emergency. What was initially reported by state media as a routine refueling stop has now been identified by independent satellite analysis and leaked diplomatic cables as a targeted, calculated detention. The White House has not yet issued a formal statement, but activity at the Pentagon and the State Department has spiked to crisis levels not seen in decades. If these reports are accurate, we're no longer looking at a diplomatic dispute. We're staring down the barrel of a geopolitical hostage situation involving the highest office of a sovereign nation. The question on everyone's mind right now is simple, yet chilling. If a world leader is not safe from detention, then who is? This story is moving incredibly fast and information is coming in fragments, but the picture forming is one of absolute chaos behind closed doors. Global markets have already begun to react, with flash crashes reported in Asian and European exchanges as the rumor spread. We are witnessing the kind of event that historians usually write about in the past tense, but we are living through it in real time. The rules of engagement have changed. The concept of sovereign immunity, the idea that a head of state is untouchable by foreign law, has effectively been erased in a single afternoon. Stay with us. What we are about to discuss isn't just news, it is a fundamental shift in how the world works. To understand the gravity of this moment, we have to look past the headlines and into the terrifying mechanics of how something like this actually happens. This wasn't a random act. You do not accidentally detain a world leader. This operation required months, perhaps years, of intelligence gathering, signal interception, and the grim calculation that the fallout would be manageable. We are talking about a superpower deciding that the potential backlash of an act of war is less dangerous than allowing this leader to remain free. The audacity of such a move suggests that the detainee holds information, or represents a threat, that the superpower considers existential. The silence coming from the detaining nation is deafening, and it is deliberate. They are creating a vacuum of information to disorient the victim, ADS government, and paralyze the international community. S response. Let's take a step back and reconstruct the timeline of the last 12 hours. It began with a standard diplomatic itinerary. The leader in question was departing a high-stakes summit, a routine event in the calendar of global politics. The flight plan was filed, the diplomatic clearances were granted, and the airspace was supposed to be a corridor of safety, but somewhere over international waters. Or perhaps, just as the aircraft skirted the edge of the superpower's air defense identification zone, the trap was sprung. Electronic warfare suites likely jammed the aircraft's communication with its home capital. Fighter jets would have appeared on the wing, not to escort, but to herd. The pilot, faced with the impossible choice between destruction or compliance, followed orders to land. Once the wheels touched the tarmac at that black site, the diplomatic veneer was stripped away. There were no red carpets, no honor guards, and no press pool. Instead, the aircraft was likely surrounded by paramilitary units who operate outside the standard chain of command. Witnesses, if there were any, would have been cleared from the area hours in advance. The leader, a person accustomed to wielding the power of armies and economies, was suddenly reduced to the status of a prisoner. Their phone, their nuclear codes, their direct line to their generals, all confiscated. In that moment, the leader ceased to be a head of state in the eyes of their captors and became an asset to be exploited. This is the nightmare scenario that Secret Service agencies train for, but pray never happens. The immediate psychological impact on the leader's home nation cannot be overstated. Imagine the confusion in the capital city right now. The cabinet is likely in an emergency bunker, debating whether to declare a state of war or to open back-channel negotiations. The vice president or deputy prime minister is facing the most difficult decision of their life. Do they assume power and project strength, risking the life of their captured leader? Or do they freeze, hoping for a diplomatic resolution that may never come? This paralysis is exactly what the detaining superpower wants. By capturing the head, they have effectively severed the nervous system of the entire government. It is a decapitation strike without a single missile being fired. But why now? And why this specific leader? Experts we have spoken to suggest that this detention is likely the culmination of a shadow war that has been raging unseen for years. This isn't about a single policy disagreement. This is about leverage on a scale we haven't seen since the Cuban Missile Crisis. The detained leader may have been on the verge of exposing a massive intelligence operation, or perhaps they were pivoting their nation's allegiance in a way that threatened the superpower's hegemony. By physically removing the decision maker from the board, the superpower has bought itself time and forced a renegotiation of reality. They are betting that the rest of the world is too afraid of a nuclear escalation to intervene militarily. They are gambling on the world's cowardice. The reaction from the international community is currently a mixture of horror and hesitation. The United Nations Security Council has been called into an emergency session, but the detaining power holds a veto. This renders the UN effectively paralyzed, turning the chamber into a theater of angry speeches, while the reality on the ground remains unchanged. Allies of the detained leader are scrambling. NATO, the European Union, and other defense pacts are activating rapid response protocols, but the ambiguity of the situation complicates everything. Is this an act of war? Legally, yes. Kidnapping a head of state is a violation of the Vienna Convention and constitutes an attack on the sovereignty of the nation. But declaring war against a nuclear-armed superpower is a suicide pact that no one wants to sign. So the Allies watch, and they wait, and they mobilize forces to borders that are suddenly bristling with tension. We must also consider the human element inside the detention facility. This is not a luxury house arrest. If the goal is to break the will of a nation, the treatment of its leader will be calculated to humiliate and disorient. Interrogators, likely specialists in psychological operations, are right now sitting across a metal table from a man or woman who was yesterday commanding millions. They are demanding state secrets, encryption keys, or public abdication. The pressure is immense. Every hour that passes without a proof-of-life video increases the likelihood that the leader is being subjected to coercion techniques that violate every human rights charter in existence. The superpower knows that if they can force a confession or resignation on camera, they win the narrative war. Meanwhile, the economic fallout is tearing through the global financial system like a tsunami. Uncertainty is the enemy of markets, and this is the ultimate uncertainty. Energy prices are skyrocketing as traders anticipate supply chain disruptions and naval blockades. Currencies of smaller nations are collapsing as investors flee to safe havens like gold and the Swiss franc. Major multinational corporations are halting operations in the conflict zones. We are looking at the potential erasure of trillions of dollars in wealth in a matter of days. This economic pain will be felt by average citizens thousands of miles away from the detention center. The gas pump, the grocery store, the retirement fund, nothing is insulated from a crisis of this magnitude. As the sun sets on the first day of this crisis, the world feels like a different place. The illusion of order has been stripped away, revealing the raw, brutal power dynamics that actually govern our planet. We are seeing that international law is only as strong as the army willing to enforce it. The detention of this world leader is a signal to every other nation. Sovereignty is a privilege granted by the strong, not a right guaranteed by the just. If this situation is not resolved within the next 24 hours, we enter a phase of escalation that could spiral into a conflict involving multiple theaters of war. The military assets are already moving. Carrier strike groups are changing course. Strategic bombers are on 24-hour alert. The pieces are being placed on the board for a game that no one knows how to win. But there's another layer to this story, one that is darker and more complex. Intelligence leaks suggest that this detention might not be an isolated event, but the first move in a coordinated strategy to reshape the global order. There are whispers of cyber attacks coinciding with the detention, targeting the power grids and financial data centers of the victims' allies. This suggests a hybrid warfare approach where the physical capture of the leader is just the kinetic component of a much larger assault. We are potentially witnessing the first battle of a war that is fought not just over territory, but over the very architecture of reality and control. The superpower is testing the red lines of the West. They are asking, what will you actually do? And so far, the answer is terrifyingly unclear. Let's talk about the domestic response within the superpower that carried out this detention. Their state media is spinning a completely different narrative. To their domestic audience, this is not a kidnapping. It is a protective custody operation or an arrest for crimes against humanity. They are building a legal case, however fabricated, to justify their actions to their own people. Propaganda machines are working overtime to paint the detained leader as a villain, a terrorist sympathizer, or a corrupt puppet of foreign interests. This domestic support allows the superpower's government to weather the storm of international condemnation. As long as their own population believes the lie, they can ignore the protests of the rest of the world. This information warfare is just as critical as the physical detention. The deeper we dig into this, the more we realize that the safeguards we thought existed were merely polite fictions. There's no global police force coming to the rescue. There is no higher court that can compel a superpower to open the cell door. The only currency that matters now is leverage, Negotiations are likely happening right now on encrypted channels. Harsh, brutal trades being proposed. Give us this territory, drop these sanctions, abandon this alliance, and you can have your leader back. It is a hostage negotiation on a planetary scale. And the terrifying part is that the victim nation might have no choice but to accept. The alternative is a leader returning in a casket, or never returning at all, leaving a ghost to haunt their politics for a generation. We are also seeing a fracturing of public opinion. In an era of polarization, even an event this clear-cut is being debated. Conspiracy theories are flooding social media, muddying the waters, suggesting the leader staged their own kidnapping, or that this is a false flag operation. This digital noise complicates the response of democratic governments, who must maintain public support for any potential military action. The detaining power knows this. They are using bot farms and disinformation campaigns to sow doubt and division, making it impossible for the free world to speak with a single unified voice. They have weaponized our own freedom of speech against us, turning our open societies into vulnerabilities. As we move into the second act of this crisis, the focus shifts to the intelligence community, ask frantic race, to locate the exact facility where the leader is being held. We are talking about the greatest manhunt in history, conducted via satellite imagery, human assets on the ground, and cyber infiltration. Every intelligence agency allied with the victim nation is currently scrubbing the superpower AS territory for anomalies. Unusual troop movements, sudden spikes in secure communications, food deliveries to abandoned bases. If they find the location, the next question is even more dangerous. Do they attempt a rescue? A special forces raid to extract a head of state from deep inside hostile territory is a mission that makes Hollywood movies look like child's play. The risks are astronomical. A failed rescue attempt results in dead soldiers and a dead leader. But the option is on the table. This is a defining moment for the current generation of leadership. Every president, prime minister, and chancellor is watching this unfold and realizing that their own safety is an illusion. The unspoken rule, we don't touch the kings, is gone. This will lead to a massive increase in security protocols, a reduction in international travel for high-ranking officials, and a cooling of diplomatic relations globally. We are entering an era of isolationism and paranoia. Summits will become video calls, treaties will be signed remotely. The personal chemistry that often de-escalates crises will vanish, replaced by cold, distant, and mistrustful interactions. The detention of one person has effectively ended the era of personal diplomacy. It is crucial to remember the human stakes here. Behind the titles and the flags, there is a family waiting for news that may never come. There is a nation feeling a collective sense of violation and vulnerability. The psychological trauma inflicted on the population of the victim nation will last for decades. They have seen their symbol of strength snatched away like a common criminal. This breeds a desire for revenge that can destabilize a region for generations. History teaches us that national humiliation is a powerful fuel for future wars. The detaining superpower may have secured a tactical victory today, but they have planted the seeds of a conflict that will grow in the shadows until it is ready to explode. As night falls over the capital city of the detained leader, thousands of citizens are gathering in the streets. Candlelight vigils are turning into angry protests. They are demanding action. They are burning the flag of the superpower. The chant rising from the crowd is not just for the release of their leader, but for the restoration of their dignity. This domestic pressure creates a ticking clock for the interim government. They cannot appear weak. If they do not escalate, they will fall. This dynamic pushes the world closer to the brink. We are one miscalculation, one trigger-happy pilot, one misunderstood radar blip away from a shooting war. The margin for error has vanished. In the coming hours, we expect a formal communiqué from the detaining nation. It will likely be a piece of carefully crafted theater presenting evidence of the leader's alleged crimes. It will be a test of the world's resolve. Will the international community accept the lie to avoid a war? Or will they stand on principle and risk everything? This is the ultimate prisoner's dilemma. The experts we have spoken to are not optimistic. They point to history, to the way powerful nations have always done what they must and weak nations have suffered what they must. But this time, the victim is not a small peripheral state. This time, the victim is a player in the great game, and the shockwaves are cracking the foundations of the stadium. We will continue to cover this story with the intensity and depth it demands. We have teams deploying to border regions, financial capitals, and defense hubs. But as we watch the screens and read the scrolling tickers, we must not lose sight of the fundamental truth of this moment. The world has changed. The safety we took for granted was a fragile construct, and it has been broken. Whether the leader is released tomorrow or never seen again, the damage is done. Trust is dead. The gloves are off. And we are all now living in the dangerous, unpredictable world that this event has created. This is not just a news story about a politician. This is a story about the fragility of civilization itself. When the people who hold the codes to our destruction are themselves treated as pawns, The game has become too dangerous to play, yet play it we must, because there is no opting out of the geopolitical reality. Stay tuned. The next few hours will determine the course of history for the next few decades. This is breaking news, and it is far from over.